Well, hello, everybody. My name is Keith Betton. I'm chair of the Hampshire Ornithological Society. We've got quite a lot of HOS members online today. Great to see you. But as news spread that we were going to have this chat, more and more people said they wanted to hear about it. So I'm very grateful to bird guides who put the word out and put the code out. So got many more people from around the UK and indeed other places around the world, which is really superb. My guest today is Arjan Dwarshuis, who in 2016 set out to see more birds in a year than anyone else. And indeed he did, 6,852 species. So welcome, Arjan.
Thank you, Keith.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I just, as you can see by all these cards behind me, I recently became a dad for the first time. So you can see me radiating, but also you can see I'm more tired now than during my big year. No, but it's fantastic, yeah, and a little less birding, but you know I've had my fair share of birding. So
you're never going to get to 8,000 species now, are you?
No, who knows? Who knows? Maybe my daughter becomes a top birder. She wants to do nothing else than chase that 8,000 species.
Well, you could just sit in your armchair and all the splits will take you there anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, what's it been like in Holland this spring? We've had a pretty awful spring in Britain. What's it been like
to be honest, I'm indeed prevailing northerly winds, which is in a sense, it's horrible for a spring in northwestern Europe because you want those prevailing southeasterly winds here in the Netherlands. But it's been good for waders. With northerly winds, they tend to come down. So that's been pretty okay. And for me, you know, I've been occupied with my baby girl, and I'm wrapping up my children's book that I'm currently writing. So I need all the time that I can get. And it would have been horrible if it was continuous southeasterly winds and fantastic birding. So it is a bit egocentric, but I'm pretty happy with this crappy spring.
Well, we had a weird spring, I must say. I've only seen a handful of swift so far, but lots of people saw alpine swift, which is a bit unusual. Yeah. A weird year. Anyway, the background to what we're going to talk about tonight is the fact that many years ago, in 1968, Peter Alden, American birder, decided to try and get a big list, 2,000 species. Now, I think many of us have seen 2,000 in a year now. It's quite easy to do. 1989, James Clements, another American birder, went and tried to see more than that. He got 3,662. And then Alan Davis and Ruth Miller, who I'm hoping are online tonight, but I'm not sure.
So too, yeah.
They set out to see what they could do in 2008. They got to 4,341. I know they went to 27 countries. And then in 2015, Noah Stryker had a go at it, and he wanted to break the 5,000 barrier. And indeed, he got to 6,042, going to 40 countries. Now, he and the others, I think, were all following the Clements list. Arjan, you went with the IOC list, a slight advantage maybe because a few more species on there, but 6,852 species in 40 countries again. And actually, importantly, all of these included, for all of those counters, all included herd onlys, which is a bit different from what most of us do, but clearly if everyone before you has done that, I guess that's what you do. So let's go right back to when you came up with the idea. I think you were about 18, 19 years old, is that right?
Yeah. So, the idea started when I just finished high school, and I had saved money for more than a year to go on a big birding trip. I've been before that. I was like, since I was basically 8 years old, I've done nothing else than birding. And I really wanted to go to Southeast Asia and Peru. Peru was like the holy grail for me. That's for me still Peru is the greatest country for birding. It's not the most species anymore, but still, I think nothing beats Peru. And so during those travels, I traveled for a half year. I ended up in Peru after I did some birding on Borneo, Malaysia, Singapore, and Australia, New Zealand, and Chile. And then in Peru, I I birded with a friend of mine who lived in Peru, who was doing research on beetles, a Dutch guy living in Iquitos, Rob Westerlaan. And together we traveled through Peru for a month or so. And well, at the end of the month, I'd seen well over 2,000 species that year, and excluded. So, and I had half a year left if I would have done a big year. And it was there, sitting on the roof of a truck that was painstakingly slow, making its way from across the east slope of the Andes towards Cusco from the lowlands of Puerto Maldonado. And then we were shivering from the blistering cold at 4,000 meters, sitting on in our sweaters. And that is when Rob asked me, do you think James Clements had a similar experience during his big year? And then I asked, who's James Clements and what's a big year? And he told all about the big year and who James Clements was. And then I thought, well, sounds like just this incredible adventure. And well, I'm nearly there. I've seen already more than 2,000 species in 7 months. So why not go for it? But then, of course, I went to university. Record was beaten, and so on, so on.
Sure. So you were, 19, 20 years old. How far down the line from there did you really start to plan the route, and when did you kind of set in your own head that you were going to do it, say in 2016?
Well, the big, I think couple of years prior. So during university, I still was birding a lot, but a little bit less. Also studying and also a little bit of partying. So birding, well, went a little bit to the background, not that much, but a little bit. And then I sort of finished university and started becoming more and more fanatic again. And then I thought, before I'm gonna get a serious job, I will do this. I will do a big year. And that was in the big idea basically started in, I think, 2013. And 2014, I was asked to come on a big television show here in the Netherlands called In Awe of the Condor. Basically, it's about birders and celebrities and a bit of a Expedition Robinson kind of show. And there actually met my girlfriend on that show, so that was great. But there I could use the promo from that show to actually find sponsors here in the Netherlands. And then I thought, well, I'm gonna do it. So I put the word out in the autumn of 2014, and then 1.5 years basically of intensive planning. Yeah.
Okay, and of course, at the beginning of 2015, Noah Stryker went off. Started around the world. At what point did you find out that he was going to do that in 2015?
Oh man, that was of course I thought, now I'm gonna try to beat Ruff and Allen's record. And at that point, I thought I could do it in a way that I always birded, did all my trips, and that was like hitchhiking along the Pan American Highway, and sitting on those rooftops of trucks and sleeping in my tent along the road. That was the way I was actually more adventurous. That was first planning to do it. And then I put the word out, I tweeted that I was going to do a big year in 2016. And literally maybe 5 minutes later, somebody sent me a screenshot from an American newspaper article. It says, American is going to beat the world record in birding in 2015, a year before me. So, and I quickly realized after looking at his website and that he was going to do it really big. So I was either not going to do a big year anymore because I'm quite competitive. And if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right. Or I was going to do it completely different. And that's basically what I did. Yeah.
So you say you're quite competitive. So I'm imagining you read his blog, you thought about your route and maybe updated your plans. Is that true?
Yeah. So I'm basically so competitive that many of my non-birding friends, they refuse to play board games with me. So that's and I'm kidding. But of course I studied his route because I could follow it online and I could literally see his daily list. And one thing that is very important when doing a big year, you have to realize you have to calculate basically a number of species you need to see on average every day. For me, it was between 18 and 19 species. So what you want is you want to stay in an area, you want to basically see on average, let's say 20 plus new birds every day. But when that number drops below 4, below 3, and you're gonna move on to the next place, even though you will miss some incredible birds, but that's you're not on a holiday, you're doing a big year. So I looked at this list, and then I could see that number drop at some stage at certain places. I knew I can do that faster, or I might skip those places, spend some more time there. He missed a lot of birds in that part of the world, so I need more time there, and that's basically how I strategized it. So of course, with any great record, you have to look at your predecessors. And I think in his book he said I copied his route. Well, I think it's a homage to him. If I would not look at his record, it would be I think almost disrespect him. He just put in an incredible effort. He took it to the next level, the whole big year thing, and I of course used that to my advantage. Yeah.
Well, you say you're slightly extreme. I'm slightly extreme. I actually made a list of all the countries he went to and you went to. So it's very interesting that he started out basically. He started out in Antarctica and the Falklands, but I mean, that's quite a nice trip to do. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
But he then went to South America, so he got all the big countries out of the way early on. And indeed, he was ahead of you at the end of February. He was ahead of you, but after that, you took over. But you put your South American countries in sort of around about halfway through the trip after you'd done your Africa stuff. So was that a mistake? Was that the right thing to do? Did you think about that, or what?
I thought about that. So it was also important reason was that I wanted to get many of the Eurasian species, the northern species, on their wintering grounds. So I want to spend January, February, March in India, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, because you will be surprised how many species you will get there. And birding in the north to look for those species will take incredible amount of time. So that was one reason. In addition to that, I wanted to be in the Middle East, Israel, and East Africa during April and May for all that incredible migration there. And then I wanted to be in the biggest countries in the world, well, besides Brazil, but Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, best time of the year, which is July, August. So, that's basically the reason. And then again, I want to pick the northern birds, North American birds, on their wintering grounds. I want to intercept them in Central America, and then on their wintering grounds in Mexico, Yucatan. So indeed, I got all the American warblers, except only 3 Perulidae that I missed that year, because I got all of them on the wintering ground, even blue-winged warbler, which I know you have not seen.
Hope to see it next week.
Yeah, good luck with that.
This is a good time to say that all of you watching, and thanks for joining us, you can, of course, take part in this. Just simply type questions in the chat box, and I will look at those in a moment or two once we've been having a bit more of a chat. So you went to Dominican Republic, Suriname, Malawi, Vietnam, but he went to the Antarctic, Falklands, and Cameroon and China. It's interesting that you had actually got 30 countries which were common to you both of you. Yeah. So if you could change the order now, if you could go back and do it again, we can go back to 1st of January. You haven't got to spend all that money. You're just going to do it imaginary. What would you change if you could?
Yeah, a couple of slight changes maybe, but that in hindsight is difficult, because I would have spent more time in the Indonesian archipelago, because there are incredible amount of species there, also in the Philippines. But that said, it's like 20 species on one island, 15 species on one island, and keep in mind those 18 to 19 species every day, and then the logistics involved to properly do the Indonesian archipelago. So I think I did a pretty good job to focus on a couple of large islands, but I could have maybe, but it would have involved incredible logistics, many flights. So maybe not Indonesia. Then China, but for me, China was difficult because I first went to India and then going into China. It was logistically difficult. Simply, I would have been very hard to get into the country. So that was also, and then I was already getting a lot of species in northeastern India. So one of the key sites, Sichuan, was not as well. It's fantastic. It's one of my dream places to go to, Sichuan, but not during my big year. Was not as interesting as it was before. I did Nagaland and the Mishmi Hills, and I did that really intensively. And then, so one part is the top end of Australia and maybe West Papua some more time. And I would love to have spent some time in Venezuela or Bolivia, but it's logistically difficult. And then West Africa, Cameroon, Gabon would have been great, but in the end, I made a calculation of how many birds I would have gotten on a 3-week itinerary from BirdQuest if I would have gone to Cameroon. Only 70 new birds. Wow. Well, that's in 3 weeks. So I think I made the right decision there. But I could have spent maybe a little less time in eastern part of Africa, in South Africa. And maybe even I spent less than a week in Europe, but still little less time in Europe. It's no disrespect to Europe, but yeah, you will get a lot of those species elsewhere. Yeah.
So, when we're traveling these days, and I do quite a bit of foreign travel, the real bind for me is having to go and get visas. Now, a lot of it you can do online.
That was
now.
the China thing, yeah.
How did you manage to get all these visas sorted out? Did you just pick countries where you could get visas in advance, well in advance, or did you have somebody doing all the applications for you as you were traveling? Because quite often it says you can't apply for, say, until 3 months before. How do you do it?
I managed to, I don't know, still not, don't know how I managed to persuade the guy who was on duty that day, but I managed to get 2 passports. 2 passports. One was here in the Netherlands. One I took with me, and I got a lot of online visa. But for the really difficult ones, for instance, Ghana, I needed to be like to physically get that passport. But my dad, he can be really persuasive. And he went to the Ghanese embassy, and he managed to get a stamp in or visa for Ghana. And he was actually joining me in Ghana. He arrived a couple hours prior to my arrival. But then in the end, we arrival. Very glad I had the visum for Ghana. And literally, there were a couple of backpackers. They immediately cash paid for their visum. Puff, got it. So in the end, I could have done the whole trip with 1 passport. And But it was also from for my mindset. It was nice that it worked out perfectly. The whole I really had very little like setbacks during my year. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a few questions coming in. A very obvious one. I mean, do you think anyone is going to beat your record? And if so, how many years before they do that?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. Of course, somebody, records are meant to be broken. But, I think I really got very lucky that year. I didn't get, besides a little food poisoning for one day, but didn't get sick, not even a single day for a whole year. No big natural disasters or countries that suddenly war broke out before I got there or while I was there. I just was incredibly lucky. I had a really good team of friends and family around me to help me out, really good sponsors. I had a really fantastic charity that I could support, and all of that is also important for your mindset. And I didn't take 1 single hour of birding. I spent every spare hour. I grinded for all the owls, the nightjars at night. think
So,
that
so
would
how
be
long before someone's going to beat your record? I mean, are we talking 5 years, 10 years, 20?
I don't know. I think at least 5 years. And yeah, I know for now, just one guy in the world, I think, who's crazy enough to one day do it. And if he does it, and his girlfriend or wife now, I'm screwed. And it's Ross Gallerty and his wife Melissa.
Yeah.
Melissa's her name, and they are just these incredible birders, and they are really, really hardcore. And they
Well, you're
plan
similar personalities for sure.
Yeah.
So somebody
Hope
else
he's not
is,
watching.
no, I don't know. I mean, but he is hardcore. There's no doubt about it. Every place I go,
military hardcore, literally.
He's just been there the week before, and I'm staying in a hotel, and he was in a ditch somewhere. On that point, I mean, the cost of this trip, I read that it was about £60,000. I know you had some sponsors, but I think you also were lucky to have the bank of mum and dad. Is that right? That helped out a little bit.
So that is also something I wrote down in my book. I'm consider myself very fortunate to have done this. Like many people around the world might dream of doing something like this one day, but they simply cannot. So I'm really every day I count my blessings for being able to have done such a fantastic adventure. And yeah, I got a lot of sponsors. So I was on quite often the year prior to my big year on television, radio shows here in the Netherlands. Got a couple of really big sponsors. That helped out a lot. Also a travel agency, Advanced Travel Partners International. And they gave me a big discount on my plane tickets, and also did all the logistics. Because that's like so many flights, really difficult. So that helped out a lot, and I saved already for years to do a big birding trip. So that helped as well. I didn't have to pay rent for an apartment or whatever, and I could borrow the remaining amount of money from my parents, and I could pay them back later from my talks, my book, and all that stuff. And that worked out.
Have you paid them back yet?
Yeah, already for a long time ago. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Birding is my profession. I'm a bird guide. I write books. I have a birding podcast. It's basically my life, and paid them back a long time ago already.
One of the quotes I liked out of Noah's book was "Pack light, go hard, stay flexible." Now, clearly you did a lot of those things. Did you always go with hand baggage only?
Yeah. Put those. That's one of the so many things I learned from Noah's big year. And that, of course, was a really important trick. Because you want to, when you have to basically bird with your backpack, very important, you need your backpack with you at all times, because traffic can get lost. And when your bag get lost during a big year, and you have to fly out to the next country the other day, you are screwed. So that is very important. One difficult thing, of course, was my tripod, because it was after 9/11, and a tripod can be a murder weapon if you want to. So I had to always I put a cover over my tripod and my backpack, but sometimes I had to do a lot of talking. I have a very friendly smile, as you can see, smiling at the douaniers. But I travel light. I had a 35-liter backpack with me, and then only 5 pairs of socks, a couple of maybe 4 or 5 boxers. So one of the most important lessons for me that year is you can wear a boxer short for a week or so, and then turn it inside out and wear it for another week or so.
And then the good thing is, if you lose your hat, you can wear the boxers on your head.
I should have learned that in advance. Learning from the pro.
Some more questions here. Did you record your sightings on eBird? I think you went with a Dutch system, didn't you?
Yeah. I used also had a sponsoring collaboration with observation.org, which is fantastic. I can really recommend it. No disrespect to eBird. I think eBird is also really fantastic. But I used Observation, and you can via my website, you can still. Because recently they upgraded the website, so I asked them to make a PDF of that current list. So it's I think at somewhere at 6,900 and something now, counting in the current split. but it hasn't. It's probably now 30, 40 species more because there's another new update from IOC. Yeah.
Okay. The question now: good birding stay always starts with a good breakfast. So, do you have a favorite sort of breakfast startup? The impression I got from reading the book is that you very often went without breakfast and just did breakfast on the go.
In the tropics, you often eat a cookie or something and have a cup of tea, and then you do some really intensive birding till it gets really hot, and then it's good during a big year always to do like around noon. Birding can be really slow.
So how many hours sleep would you get on an average day? I mean, I know
it depends, highly depends. So if I would stay in the Rio Azul Jungle Lodge, for instance, in Brazil, of course, it gets dark at 6, gets light at 6. And even including some owling, I could easily get 8 hours of sleep, which was fantastic. I stayed there for 4 nights. It was wonderful. Fantastic food, by the way. Can I really recommend that? But Australia, I did, the whole of Australia, including Tasmania, and then North and South Island of New Zealand in 12 days. So that was maybe on average 2 to 3 hours of sleep every night, or no sleep, or just maybe a quick like nap on the plane. And at some point, stages during my trip, I was so tired. I remember driving myself in Israel, for instance, and I took a nap and like laying back in my driver's seat, and I had my keys in my hands like this. And when I heard the keys drop on the floor, woke me up, and then I just a little bit of nap, and to keep on going. That was a strategy I learned from my grandfather-in-law, actually.
Okay, another one here about thermal imagers. So a lot of us are using thermal imagers now, but I think back in 2016. Probably that was a bit ahead of the time. I mean, if you used a thermal imager now, do you think you'd add many species? You'd certainly find some, I guess.
Yeah, and I have one now, and actually, I think it also, of course, times change, and I used playback to see birds, and I used the flashlight to see owls, and of course, that is also a bit of disturbance. I won't be hypocritical, say that I didn't do that. Of course I did that. And with a thermal, you don't disturb the birds, and they're easier to find. So yes, but bringing a thermal on a big year, well, try to get your thermal into like there are countries where you will definitely be searched for a couple hours at the airport, or even they will take it away from you. Try to bring a thermal into Arunachal Pradesh, for instance. They will take it away from you.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things I think you got ahead of Noah on, Noah mostly did his birding just with a guide, maybe on his own quite often, but he had guides. But you had a whole posse of friends. In fact, I think I'm right in saying you had something like 30 friends over the year who came and joined you at various stages. And at some points, I've seen photographs, you've got like 4 or 5 friends with you. Now, that must be a great thing, because that must motivate you. I expect they brought you supplies and stuff you needed from Holland. But probably also it meant you had 5 pairs of eyes with you. I mean, is that okay? Is that fair, do you think?
Yeah, the most important thing, of course, it's like a lot of fun. So I had some of my best friends who I did birding trips with before my big year, decided to like invest their precious time and holiday to join me instead of another birding trip, because of course it meant they would miss other species that they really want to see, because the most important thing on the trip was the big year.
But is that fair? That's the point I'm making. Is it fair to have all these friends along? I mean, you know, they may be finding the birds for you. I know the guide would find birds for you, but what about all these other people?
Well, I can challenge you to come along on a birding trip with me and try to see something before me. No, I'm joking. No, it helped. It of course helped a lot. And is it fair? Yeah, of course. Why not share an amazing adventure like this with your friends? And then the most important part of doing this with friends is that every time you are really fatigued after a long flight, and you feel maybe like, oh, how can I keep on doing this for another 5 months? And then you have these friends, and for them it's their holiday, and they are keen to let their stretch of the big year be the best and most effective and not miss anything. And so that helped a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the questions that's come up a few times is about your carbon footprint,
Of course,
which I know you accept is quite large.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Yeah.
How did you deal with that in terms of offsetting, and also what would be your message to worldwide birders now who want to travel the world and copy? They're going to read your book and think, well, hey, I'm going to go and do this now. What do you think you should say to them?
Well, in retrospect, with the whole, my perception on flying changed. You know, I flew for a whole year all over the world. That's a lot of carbon into the air. But I offsetted my carbon footprint through a carbon offset program. In addition to that, I raised funding for the BirdLife Preventing Extinctions program. So I raised nearly 50,000 euros for bird conservation. And then I think most importantly, I do think it's really important that people do keep on going to these incredible birding sites around the world, because in many cases, ecotourism is one of the most important source of income, and it is one of the most important ways to protect nature. And a big example, for instance, during COVID pandemic in Vietnam, birders stayed away, and well, a friend of mine was just there, Vincent van der Spek, and he realized some of those incredibly beautiful and rare laughing thrushes were actually gone from the well-known sites, because they were all misnetted and sold on the black market. So, and also Madagascar, there would not be a tree left. So what I would advise to anyone listening, of course, don't travel as much anymore. But when you're thinking about maybe going to Peru, please go there, offset your carbon footprint, and choose the right eco-lodges. Travel with a local guide, stay at a local guest house, eat the local food, invest in the local community, tell your friends about these incredible places. And of course, that is important. But I cannot say to my friends, well, I can go to Peru, and it's for you. You're not allowed to go to Spain and spend a couple hours on the beach, and it's difficult. The whole question it's very difficult, but yeah, that's how I would answer that question.
Okay, got another question here, which was, what was the easiest species you missed, and is there a species that you saw that you really didn't think you were going to see?
Oh yeah. So a couple of really easy ones. So I missed. Probably the easiest bird I missed is greater striped swallow. So that is, if you go to South Africa in the right time of the year, it's probably the first bird you see when birding there. It's really common. But I was there in winter, so they were up north. And while I was up north, they were already going we just basically missed each other. So There was one bird, and I missed a common quail. Yeah, I literally heard a common quail 2 days ago, but I missed it during my big year. Yeah, and of course more just left and right, some new easy birds that I missed. But in general, most easy birds I managed to see them, and of course I got some really difficult birds that I didn't thought I was gonna see. I did see during my big year some really hard species like para, netcatcher, wing-banded antbird. Well, one of those quite well spread Amazon birds that you need dumb luck to see them, and you be at the right place at the right time. And some of those difficult intra-African migrants in Kenya, for instance. But a lot of them.
But you managed to get horned guan in the end, I think.
Yeah, it was. I think my most favorite bird of my entire trip was horned guan, because it's just I think that bird fascinated me for the first time I laid eyes on it on a photo in a book, And that's just a bird that I always dreamt of seeing, with that bizarre red horn on its base of its skull. And then I finally had the chance in Guatemala, but I didn't have a lot of time, so I had to go up there, and I had to be back at the lodge at noon. So normally you go up, spend the whole day hiking up there, maybe camping up there, then going down, because you'll spend 2 or 3 days looking for that bird on the slopes of Mount Atitlan. And I ran basically up the hill with a guide, started at 2:30 in the morning with a headlight. We were there before first light, but then we missed it at dawn, and then your chances decrease. But finally, I got it in the dying seconds, just around 11 a.m. Fantastic sighting. And then I had to basically run down the mountain without breaking my ankles to make it to the airport. Yeah.
It's a lot easier these days. So somebody doing the big ear now would probably get it in, a fraction of that time, I think.
Yeah, some birds will be more easy, but others will be more difficult. And the sad thing is that many bird species are incredibly threatened. Some are going extinct. And that was also an important message also during my big year. And that's why reason I did the fundraiser for the BirdLife Preventing Extinctions program. And I visited all these conservation programs and sites during my big year to write about it, tell people about these fantastic sites, and also to make people realize that, these birds are incredibly threatened. 1/5 of all birds in the world is threatened, and we should do everything we can to counteract that.
Yeah. Now, you saw harpy eagle, am I right in saying 3 times?
3, I saw 3 harpy eagles during
That's
my big
2 more than you need, really.
And none on a nesting site. All 3 die just by chance. Yeah, and one of them an hour apart from a crested eagle in Brazil. Yeah.
Sure. Now, a question I'm quite often asked, because I have a good world birding list, is have I ever seen a bird that's become extinct since I've seen it? And I don't believe I have. I saw masked finfoot 2 or 3 months ago, and I reckon that one will go extinct in my lifetime. Yeah. Is there any bird that you have seen in your birding life that you know is, or you think has now become extinct?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think I have seen a species that is now extinct, but I have seen species that are on the brink.
Yeah, I mean, slender-billed curlew would be one, but you're probably too young.
Believe it or not, I twitched the hypothetical slender-billed curlew near Suffolk, I think.
Minsmere, yeah.
Yeah, Minsmere, yeah. I went on the boat with a couple of friends from the Netherlands, and that's not a crazy story. Didn't sleep that night. Went straight from the pub to the boat. Arrived there, all the British birders really seriously looking at this curlew. We were like pushing each other into the bushes. And then we arrived. We saw that curlew, and we thought, we saw the last slender-billed curlew, celebrating on the boat back, drinking beers again. And then, of course, DNA proved they cut some feces of the bird that was just a normal curlew. So,
well, I went with a friend who might even be on the line tonight. And as we were going along, we looked at the bird, and he'd seen the ones in Morocco, and he said, "Nah, that's not a slender-billed curlew." And
I should have been next to him, but
I know. I could have saved a lot of time, tell you.
Yeah, but one bird that is, I think, quickest to go extinct, maybe is and which is not critically endangered, but endangered actually, is a black-eared miner in Australia, because that is there's. I spoke to my guide recently, and he said he hasn't seen a pure
there's a lot of hybrids.
Pure bird. It's only hybrids or second generation hybrids. Yeah.
Okay, so a few more questions. What is the top bird on your list that you would like to see now? So what would you go for with that? If you had, let's say, if I gave you a free airline ticket, what would you go and see? You can see one bird. Well,
for the thrill of birding, the thing I love to do most in the world is I like my actually a list that is more important to me almost than my big year list, my self-found list in the Netherlands. I spend a lot of hours in the field try to find vagrants. And one thing I've never found, I found a new subspecies though for the Western Palearctic in the Netherlands, but I never found a new species for the Netherlands. And if I could just book a boat trip to Vlieland and find a black and white warbler in October on one of the Waddenzee Islands, that would be my dream find, or my dream bird, more so than any bird of paradise or an emperor penguin. A black and white warbler on the Waddenzee Islands in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Mine's emperor penguin, without a doubt. Somebody else asked, of the birds on your list, what percentage of the species did you actually have time to properly see, watch and study and get familiar with? Because I imagine you were under a lot of pressure to keep on going rather than enjoy and really.
Yeah, but just if you keep in mind those 18 to 19 species per day, and you divide a whole day through 18 to 19 species, you will have a lot of time to watch. If you're birding nonstop, to appreciate the species. Okay, sometimes you just have limited time. You have a mixed species flock somewhere in the Atlantic forest where I spent basically 2 weeks. You will have to be quick. You cannot really stand still and for 15 minutes watch, or even half an hour watch some Tyrannulet. But yeah, all the really good quality birds, I of course took my time to admire them and really appreciate them. And sometimes I put the extra effort for the really special ones, like a white-necked Picatartes or the horned guan. Of course, I put extra effort there, and because usually those really incredibly rare birds are in sites with more really good birds. So while you are looking for those species, you get to see other stuff. And when you are I think, Keith, you've been birding all your life.
Yeah,
as well.
Since I was 8.
Exactly. So when you have been birding your whole life and you've done a lot of traveling, as a birder, you can glance a bird and you will immediately notice, that's that bird, because you can basically visualize every eye stripe, tertial pattern, everything. And you can quickly glance at the bird and just print it in your mind. And that's also what I did sometimes. Yeah.
I must admit, I think I quite often ask that question, and I think, well, of the birds I've ever seen, which is just over 8,500, I'd say probably about a third I could remember straight away. And I'd also remember I'd seen them. Another third, I'd know roughly what they were, but I wouldn't actually necessarily put a name on it. And then another third, particularly in South America, because I prefer Africa to South America, I'd probably struggle to see put it into a family. You really like South America, don't you? I think it's probably where your heart is, and probably in Peru mainly. Didn't you see more than 1,000 birds in about 25 days or something?
Yes. And in total, because I did all that birding in Peru, it was actually my 4th time birding in Peru. I've seen around 1,500 species in Peru alone, and I just really enjoy birding in South America. The sheer number of species and the high density of endemics. And but that said, I'm also a big fan of Africa. I really enjoy, especially the intra-African migrants. That is something that fascinates me. And no, I think if I have to choose a continent, it might actually be Africa. Yeah.
Right. Well, I guess that's because you've got more life as you could get in Africa now, isn't it, in total?
And no, probably still South America.
Really?
Because after all that birding, I've seen a fraction of the endemics of Brazil, still Venezuela, Bolivia, and even in Peru. 4 times I've birded there. I just recently checked with the recent splits and some really difficult birds like yellow-eared toucanet, green-capped tanager. I can still get even 25 new endemics in Peru. Yeah.
Right. So with all this traveling, I mean, I've always wondered, if I'm going to end up dying in a car crash, because I remember in one year I was in Costa Rica and the driver coming the other way fell asleep. Then was in Colombia and the brakes failed on the bus, so we had to crash the bus rather than go over a cliff. Yet the list just goes on. Did you have any moments in your traveling by road or whatever when you thought, this is really not going well, this is not going to come out a happy day, or was it not like that?
I was pretty lucky with that. There was one scary moment in New Guinea where I'm generally still think we were in the car with the wrong people, going to the Kumho Lodge. And I do think those guys want to rob us, because we could hear in pidgin dialect constantly the words bag and money, and they're really big guys. And it was just a scary situation. And when we arrived at the lodge, they parked just prior to the lodge, and they threatened us that we should give them more money, otherwise they would come back with a couple of friends to rob us or beat us up. So that was scary. Yeah, and it's PNG, so yeah.
But did you at any point have any sort of like security guards? I mean, for example, you went to Mexico, which is quite a tricky country at the moment.
Yeah, but I was birding there with Michael Hilchi and Michael Redder, and then a couple of really experienced local birders from Mexico, fantastic bird guides, and they just really know that country really well. They know exactly how to behave, where you should not go after dusk, and where you can go. And basically, the Durango Highway is such an example where you can actually very safely bird during the day.
I was supposed to go to Mexico with Michael Carmody in 2 weeks' time, and he cancelled the whole thing, and because he was held up at gunpoint and said it's
really
not good. No.
I guess ignorance is bliss, for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, somebody else excited by the discussion of your boxes. So just give us a little kind of rundown of the contents of your lightweight bag. So we've got the boxes out of the way. How many pairs of trousers and shirts and so on?
Two trousers. Actually, only 3 or no. Yeah, in beginning just so first 3 months I had only 2 t-shirts, like a merino wool shirt. But they were like, I stank so bad. So when my girlfriend met me after those 3 months, I wanted to hug her and then kiss her. And I had this nasty beard, 3 times the length I have now. And then my hair really fattier than it's now. And then this shirt that was, you could basically see my nipples through my shirt. It was so worn down. And then I got an extra shirt, and then, like I said, I had maybe 4 or 5 pairs of socks, 4 or 5 at the most pairs of boxers. So very little underwear.
But you can buy stuff on the way, though, can't you, if you're traveling? But what about kit? So did you have a telescope? Presumably you had to have a telescope.
Yeah, I was sponsored by Swarovski Optic, so I had a ATX 65 telescope that knew the Swarovski telescope, the ATC. That would have been great for a big year. But I got that was not out yet, so I had the ATX, and then I had EL 10x32 binoculars, quite compact.
Sure.
And I had not a big. Now I have a big Canon lens, and back then I only had a PowerShot camera with me.
So if your binoculars had somehow got stolen, I mean, you presumably just have to borrow some from the guides, because you were using guides, so I guess that wouldn't be a massive problem, or that would just be
it would have been really crap. But then I think I would have been able to arrange something with Swarovski to send me a new one, because they were sponsoring my big year, or get some at the store at the airport, something like that. And actually my PowerShot camera, the first one, was completely worn down, like because of all the DDT or the DEET and the sunscreen. You can no longer read the numbers on the buttons. So I got a new camera from them, from Canon, halfway, and
I use the PowerShot. I've got the SX70. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
It's a good
fantastic camera.
Yeah.
Got lots of questions coming in.
Cool.
So what is the bird that, when you finally saw it, you were the most relieved at seeing? That's sort of similar to an earlier question, but
that's got to be the orange one again. Yeah. But there's also, let's answer that, because that's also probably a question. The bird that I most expected to see that I didn't see was a giant Enpita in I literally cried when I didn't see Maria. I had Angel Pass all for myself the whole morning, and we missed it. And the day before, a whole busload of Japanese photographers, they saw not one but 2 giant Enpitas feeding from his hands, and I missed it. So I was literally like crying on Angel's shoulder that I had to go because yeah.
So for the benefit of people who don't know what the giant antpitter is, briefly, it's a bird found in northern Peru, northern Ecuador, and Angel Paz, a lovely guy, had a reserve there, and Maria he tamed to eat worms. But I was lucky, but I can understand.
Yeah, I was
how
already
frustrating.
by that. Listening to your story, I was thinking that you probably saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I had exactly the same thing. I had green-breasted pitter in Uganda, where they had it the day before and the day after, and the day I was there.
I've seen that not during my big year, but I've seen it really well in 2019, displaying for 20 minutes in the scope. Yeah.
So we talked about your friends. Were there any species that your friends saw, but even though they're worse birders than you, as you pointed out, but you missed?
Oh yeah. Not many. There were, of course, when you're like birding, somebody picks up something in a mixed species. I think one of the best birds that a friend of mine saw that I missed was Dapplethroat in the Usambaras, Stratton Hatfield. But till this day, he swears he saw it. I believe him. And
you can usually hear Dapplethroat though, can't you?
Yeah, spot throat. Yeah, that is easy. And then Dapplethroat, if you go to the Ulugurus, I didn't go there, and it's really rare in the Sambara. So missed that, and maybe the old Tyrannulet or the old. But when you're birding continuously for a whole year, you also are really used to birding in rainforest. And usually, when you're used to birding in Britain or the Netherlands, and you go on a trip, it takes some getting used to. And I was, of course, incredibly focused because I was doing this record attempt, and I was doing literally nothing else than birding. So because of that, I think I missed very few birds doing my that other people did. I missed Sunda thrush and Max did see it on Java. That's a painful bird. Yeah.
So the final bird that got you the record, was it a Buffy wood partridge?
Buffy crowned wood partridge. Yeah.
Buffy crowned wood partridge. So I mean, that's
nice bird.
It's a nice bird to have in Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that. How did it feel?
Yeah, that was the day. So that was just so the craziest thing about that day is half a year in advance. Three of my best non-birding friends, three of my best friends who I lived with for 5 years during university in the same house, they were planning a trip, just a holiday to Costa Rica. I didn't know about it. They secretly contacted Camilla, my girlfriend, and through her, our guide, Peter Westra from Aratinga Tours. Fantastic guy, by the way. And they asked him if they could join for 1 day or 2 days during my big year. And he said yes. And they got a bird book of Costa Rica, binoculars. They basically trained, memorized the species with the target birds. And then in Costa Rica, arriving at the airport, who were there. My three of my best friends, and then the next day picked them up from the airport at 2:30 in the morning, and around noonish, I together with my best friends, just dumb luck, half a year in advance they booked it. I got my record-breaking bird, and on the same day we got resplendent quetzal, the most beautiful bird in the world, and till this day. They say that was the most tiresome day of my entire life because we picked them up from their hotel at 2:30 in the morning, and we ended up with unspotted saw-whet owl actually seen at 1 a.m. the next day. So it was almost 24 hours of non-stop birding for non-birders. That was just fun. And they had bought a bottle of champagne and a box of cigars with them secretly. They picked it up from a store somewhere. So I was in the middle of the jungle after a Buffy crowned wood partridge, sipping champagne and smoking a cigar to celebrate. Yeah.
Well, they might have brought some Dutch cookies for you from Amsterdam, maybe,
Yeah, that's how I set the record.
One question about that, your final bird, thankfully you saw it, but if it had been a bird that you'd only heard, that would have been quite tough, I think.
Yeah, and
do you know how many birds you actually didn't see, but you heard during the entire trip?
You can actually check that. I think it's still on the. When it was not a PDF yet, you can actually could see it, and maybe still, if you would go down my sightings, I noted it only as calling. I literally only heard it. So there were about 244 birds in total that I only heard during my big year.
Right.
And for my live list, I only count birds that I've seen. But like some birds, to be honest, when I was birding with Eduardo Patrial, one of the best birders in the world in Brazil, and he said that's 100% this foliage cleaner or this Tyrannilet, I believed him. But I cannot, if you ask me now, how did that bird sound like? I would be lying if I say I still remember. But, some owls or nocturnal curassow and Sani lodge, I can remember vividly how that sounded like this. So some heard-only birds can be a real exciting sighting still.
Yeah, pleased to say I finally got nocturnal curassow seen in Peru.
You saw it?
Yeah, last year.
Napo Lodge or not?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And
this is in Peru.
Okay, yeah. Fantastic. Hey, one important thing to add to that. So I think Noah had close to 350 birds he only heard. And if you take that into account, I am the only birder ever to have seen more than 6,000 bird species in 1 year.
Right. Okay. But it could well be, not trying to diss your record, but you did have a lot of people with you. So the fact that you had more people, more eyes, that if he'd maybe had 5 friends with him, that might have helped a little bit.
It might have. We will never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
Couple of final questions and then we'll close it. And one person's asked here, what's the worst place in the world for mosquitoes?
Yeah. There was the Varzea forest at near Sani Lodge when I was looking for wing-banded endbird. And we were just prior or I think just after the rainy season, and it was still partly flooded. I was ankle deep or knee deep sometimes through the mud, making my way to the terra firma, which is the more solid grounds where we would look for the wing-banded endbird. And it started in the twilight with these horrible stinging flies that they came from everywhere and you could not fight them off. And as soon as the stinging flies were gone, the mosquitoes started. And literally I can remember being on my knees waiting for ochre-striped endpitta, was calling, and I could just not see it. And then suddenly, while I was literally covered in mosquitoes, and if you do this, bird, you will never see the ochre-striped endpitta. So I was like, and then suddenly I saw something move, and it was not ochre-striped endpitta. I was wing-banded endbird suddenly popped in, and while I was looking at that wing-banded endbird, which I actually took a crappy photograph of, ochre-striped endpitta hopped underneath on the ground underneath that wing-banded endbird, and those 2 birds. Well, you will know, Keith, they are really hard to see.
They are tough indeed. 2 of the toughest. Well, the final question has to be really, are you glad it's all over, and what's next for you?
Well, it was the adventure of a lifetime, but I'm glad I made it till the end in one piece. And of course, now things change. I have a little baby daughter. She's now my top priority. And I'm, here in the Netherlands, like I said, birding is my profession now. So one of the things I'm really busy with, I'm making a big shooting a nature documentary about birding here in the Netherlands already for a couple of years, which will be out hopefully somewhere by the end of this year. Also, I'm wrapping up my children's book about a little girl and her friendship with a great bittern, my most favorite bird in the world. And I'm really busy guiding locally here in the Netherlands. I have my birding tours. And I'm very busy with my podcast. So I have a podcast, the Vogels podcast, and it's the biggest nature podcast here in the Netherlands. So that went through the roof during a Corona crisis. Suddenly, every every young person here in the Netherlands, basically my age, started birding. So birding is suddenly hot and cool here in the Netherlands, and that's when we started our podcast. And now we have like a big fan base. We're actually next month going to Spitsbergen for 8 days with 30 fans from our podcast, looking for polar bears, ivory gulls, and all that stuff. So yeah, that's also, yeah. So Spitsbergen is my first trip, and I'm coming to the bird fair for anybody listening, signing books there in July. And I'm going to the Arizona Birding Festival in August, signing books there, giving a talk. So if you're listening in, you can join.
Brilliant, superb. And I believe Amsterdam's now really much better than it used to be. It used to be full of people smoking pot and God knows what. And they've cleaned the place up a bit, and it's a bit more nature friendly.
Still smoking pot. Make no mistakes there.
Well, anyway,
but it's a nice place to live, and also from a birding perspective, there are a couple of nice birding sites quite close. So 20 minutes, half an hour drive here in the Oostvaardersplassen. You can look for red-breasted goose, bearded rietling, marsh warblers, all that stuff. Or you can go to the dunes. Yeah. I'm actually promoting my tours a bit here. But also in the vicinity of Amsterdam, quality birding can be done. Like literally last year around, actually 2 days ago last year, I found like under the smoke of the city, basically, I found a Balienskrake calling in Amsterdam, basically, which is a real rare marsh bird. So good quality birding can be done here in Amsterdam. Yeah,
absolutely.
You can still smoke your pot.
I was there last year and had a really fantastic time for 4 days. So the book, I must say, I've read the book from cover to cover. If you read Birdwatch magazine, then you'll see the review of that in this month's issue, which is out already. But if you don't get Birdwatch, then have a look on NHBS, on their book reviews, or indeed on Amazon. My review is on there. It is the big year that flew by. 12 months, 6 continents, and the ultimate birding record, published in paperback by Chelsea Green Publishing, and of course written by Arjan. And you can have a reduction on the price, a 30% reduction. All you have to do is go on to the Chelsea Green website, which is chelseagreen.co.uk, or if you're in America, chelseagreen.com, put in the code BY30 and you'll get 30% off. And for those in the UK, that means the price comes down from $18.99 to $13.30 plus postage. But
that's
anyway,
practically for free.
Arjan, it's been fantastic to hear your birding experience. We've all now been around the world with you, and I think it's been really, really interesting. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Likewise, I really enjoyed it. So thanks, Keith.
And your humor, which I think is great. You know, some birders are just full of facts and details, and the color that you put behind it is actually not only in this talk, it's in the book too.
Well, that is a last moment, I think that I forgot to add. The most important way that I could actually do this whole year was the fact that you need some humor and joke around and have fun. I had just the most fun the whole 366 days, because it was a leap year, by the way.
Leap year.
But that part of just having fun, and birding is so fun. It's the best hobby in the world. Everybody, every non-birder listening in, please go birding. You'll love it. You can have a lot of fun doing it. Yeah.
Well, Arjan, thank you very much. Dank u wel. Tot ziens.
Dank u wel.
For those people who are not aware of the Hampshire Ornithological Society, www.hos.org.uk will tell you all about us. We're a great bunch of people. We'd love to see you. Thanks for joining us, and thank you again, Arjan, for a tour around the world.
Happy birding.